Secretary of State, first I'd like to welcome you to Jordan. And I know part of the reason that you came to the Middle East region is to try to push the Gaza withdrawal plan. Now, you visited Ramallah and Tel Aviv. How would you assess the situation on the ground there?
Well, I had a chance to be with both the Israeli leadership and the Palestinian leadership. I found them very focused on what needs to be done for Gaza withdrawal, both focused internally in what they must do, but also they're beginning to coordinate, which is what I really wanted to come here to push. It's important that there be no surprises between the two sides. They each have their responsibilities in order to ensure a peaceful and orderly withdrawal from the Gaza, and so I find them making preparations and working very hard at it. Mr. Wolfenson, who is the quartet's envoy for the Gaza withdrawal, is meeting with them, and we really want the Gaza withdrawal to be a beginning for the process of coming to a final conclusion of the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, because if they can build trust and confidence, then they can move forward. And if the Palestinians can build strong institutions, political institutions, economic institutions, security institutions, we'll make more rapid progress once the withdrawal is over.
Do you believe that there will be any complications in implementing the Gaza withdrawal on the deadline that is expected? Now, we know there have been complaints from the Israeli side that Hamas is going to be more involved in the political process. They were trying to get them out, while on the Palestinian side they're saying that the settlement plans, Ariel Sharon has not implemented the February agreement.
Yes. Well, there clearly are a lot of steps between now and a successful withdrawal, and both parties should concentrate on what they need to do in this regard. Now, when it comes to the Sharm understandings, they'll have an opportunity to meet again on Tuesday, and we would hope that that would produce further progress on the Sharm understandings. The Gaza withdrawal itself, though, depends more on a secure environment. It depends on the Israelis and the Palestinians working together to deal with the disposition of the various assets that will be left behind, and it depends on the international community supporting the Palestinians in their planning for a Gaza that will be economically viable, that will give some hope to the Palestinian people that they're moving forward in a way that's going to make their lives better.
If you were talking about an ideal, you said the Gaza withdrawal is a first step. What would you say the two-state solution should consist of, as far as territory is concerned, for the Palestinian side, for the Israeli side?
Well, all of this will be left to negotiation between the parties at the time of final status, but we've been very clear that a Palestinian state has to be one that is contiguous in order to be viable, territorially contiguous. One that cannot be just scattered pieces of land, that there has to be contiguity. And so that will be one of the governing principles. But I do think that while there are certain realities that have happened since the period of 67, the President's been very clear that the parties are going to have to negotiate the boundaries and the other final status issues, and that there should be no prejudice now as to what that negotiation will produce.
Well, do you ideally see Jerusalem as a capital for all?
Well, Jerusalem is an important city for the world's great religions, for all of the world's great religions. But precisely what the disposition of Jerusalem will be, I think we will have to wait for the parties to agree. But I think that the Middle East has a tendency, I think, to get out ahead of itself and to look at what is out there rather than what is right in front of it. And right now we have an historic opportunity in the Gaza withdrawal for the Israelis to turn back land to the Palestinians, for the Palestinians to use this opportunity to strengthen their institutions, political, economic, security institutions, to build some trust between the two sides, and then let's see what the next steps are. But no one wants this to be the last step, and most especially the United States, but it is a very important step, and we have to get it right.
Do you see NATO as playing, that's been an issue that's been discussed, do you see NATO as playing a role, or is that too soon to even talk about?
Well, I think it's too soon. I look forward to the day when we are talking about supporting a peace agreement, and then we'll see what the appropriate mix of indigenous forces and international help might be. But NATO does have outreach to countries in the region through the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative and through the dialogues that have been going on. The NATO leadership has been in the region talking to people. We want to build bridges, but I think it's too early to talk about a role for NATO in the peace agreement.
What if the Gaza withdrawal plan does not take place at the time that it needs to? What would be the next step? Do you see complications, and what are the possible solutions that you could propose in this kind of situation?
Well, obviously, I think since we believe this is so important, we have to focus on what we need to do to make it happen. I don't think there's any purpose in speculating on what might happen if it does not. All of our energies right now, and I have to say all of the energies of the parties, are on making it happen, because it is an historic decision by Prime Minister Sharon and his government. It does lead one to believe that if this could be done successfully, the roadmap, which is the most reliable guide to a two-state solution, could be re-engaged with vigor. So I think we should just concentrate on making this work.
Do you believe that we can set a deadline for the actual existence of a two-state solution, where we can say, by this time we foresee an actual two-state solution on the ground?
Yes. Well, I'm not very fond of deadlines and timelines because you're either too ambitious or not ambitious enough. And conditions can be very different, I believe, after the Gaza withdrawal. We don't know what will happen when you have a stronger Palestinian stronger institutions of potential statehood for the Palestinians. When the Israelis and the Palestinians have worked together to bring about something this consequential for the Israeli people and for the Palestinian people. When the Palestinians have had further elections. The conditions could indeed produce circumstances in which you'd have much more rapid progress. And so I'm not very fond of deadlines, but I am someone who believes that we need to really, so to speak, roll up our sleeves and make sure that this withdrawal goes well.
What do you foresee roles being played as far as Jordan is concerned, as far as Egypt is concerned?
Well, both Egypt and Jordan, as regional states, have been very supportive of the peace process, and indeed have been the most important Arab states in that regard, have important roles to play. I know that there will be roles to play in the training and equipping of Palestinian security forces, something that Jordan has participated in before, something that Egypt has. Egypt is in discussions with the Israelis about security in the Gaza and the Philadelphia Strip and how that might be administered. Jordan and Israel share economic space, and the Palestinians, I would hope, would be increasingly brought into that economic space. So there is an enormous role here for Jordan to play, and I've enjoyed my discussions with the Jordanian foreign minister, and I look forward to discussions with His Majesty about Jordan's support for this process. But there's no doubt in my mind that Jordan will play an important role.
Let's go to the next step, Ms. Secretary, and that is that you're going to be going to Brussels. You're going to be discussing Iraq's reconstruction, and it's going to be a very big conference with possibly 8 countries involved. What do you hope to see come out of this situation? There's been a lot of discussions regarding Iraq, what's going to happen, the troops, how long are they going to be stationed there, and so on and so forth.
Yes. The Iraqi people have now embarked on a very difficult but really important course toward the creation of a democratic state in the heart of the Arab world, one that would show that people of different religious and ethnic backgrounds can live together in peace and in democracy. And what I see is the world coming together to support that enterprise, to support them politically, to hear the Iraqis' own plans for reconstruction and development. It is not a pledging conference. There will later be a donor conference, which in fact the Jordanians will host. But this is really to have the Iraqis have an opportunity to present their ambitions, their plans for the future, so that the international community can organize to help them. It can be technical assistance, ministries that need support in terms of capability building, but more than anything, after a difficult period in which there were differences internationally about the liberation of Iraq, the world is now united in the notion that Iraqis deserve a better future than they had under Saddam Hussein, and that they are building that future, and that they're going to have international support to do it.
There's so much I could actually talk to you about. Unfortunately, we're very limited on time, so I'm going to allow my final question to you, Ms. Secretary, to be, if you would say that I want this administration, which I'm very involved in, to be remembered in the history books for a particular thing, what would you want this administration to be remembered for?
I would hope that the President and the administration would be remembered for having opened up possibilities for people to seek democracy and freedom on their own terms. I look at a place like Jordan where there are homegrown reforms. The enterprise of democracy is not something that can come from the outside. It has to come from within. And what the President has done is simply to say that the United States is aligned with those people throughout the region who want to have their own aspirations for democracy, who want to be able to say what they think, who want to be able to worship freely, who want to be able, as they do here in Jordan, to educate their children, both boys and girls, and who want to be free of the arbitrary power of the state. And I think if we work hard at it, the United States works hard at helping to provide an environment, that we're seeing that people across this region are rising up and saying that that's exactly what they want. Very often throughout the world, and certainly in our own history, there were people who were thought to want democracy and people who didn't, people who were ready for democracy and people who weren't ready for democracy. Well, in fact, in the great cultures of this region, what we're seeing is that people do want democracy, that they are ready for democracy. We have great respect for Islam and for the fact that there is no contradiction between the tenets of Islam and the desire to live in freedom. And so this president has done what I think American presidents have tried to do before, which is to open up the realm of what is possible. What is exciting is that across this region, people are responding not to the president, but to their own desires for freedom and for liberty, and that indeed is very, very exciting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Secretary. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have.
Thank you.
But hopefully next time you come to the country, we'll have a little bit of a longer period of time to meet up with you and also do a long and extended interview. And again, congratulations on your new firm.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very much. To Jordan.
That's right. It's my first trip here, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful here on the Dead Sea. I'm really thrilled that I had the chance to visit such a beautiful place.
And it's wonderful to have you, and we understand it's your first stop from a Middle East tour.
That's right. I'm going to go on to Israel. I'm going to go to Jericho while I'm in Israel, and then go to Egypt after that.
That's great. Now, why choose the World Economic Forum, and why choose the issue of the empowerment of women?
Well, I was actually invited to speak at the World Economic Forum, and I wanted to take this opportunity to speak here because I think it's so important that women are allowed to be part of civil society. Women can make such a huge contribution to each of their own countries. And we know that mothers who are educated, who have the opportunity to be educated, can make wise decisions for their children. We want children to be educated. We want mothers to be educated. And This was a great opportunity to talk about that. And of course, because Kuwait just voted for women's suffrage, it was also a great time to talk about the rights of women here in the broader Middle East as well as around the world.
Now you talk about the empowerment of women and the fact that education is a very fundamental part in the process towards the empowerment of women. What do you believe are the other criteria that have to exist in order for women to be empowered?
Well, women need to be educated, of course. They need to be able to go to school like men do, so they can have the opportunity to make their own choices and make their own way in life. We want women, if they want to be involved in business, to have the opportunity to be educated so they can be entrepreneurs if they want to, or they can become teachers or lawyers or all the other jobs that are available to women in a lot of other places in the world. We think that's really important. And then we know that mothers are a child's first teacher, and that if women are educated themselves, they're much more likely to encourage their children to be educated. Right now in the Middle East, in the broader Middle East, there are many, many young people, and we want to be able to reach those young people, and I think mothers can help us reach those young people.
Another question, and you know, we talk about the Middle East region. It's a region that has seen a lot of conflicts. Conflicts that, as His Majesty has talked about, has affected youth and affect the daily life of youth and their development, and also impacts the empowerment of women, since we know that conflict many times impacts the most women and children.
Well, that's so true. Women and children are the bystanders many times in conflict. And I know that women in each of the countries in the Middle East and around the world want to be able to contribute to their own society. They want to have a political role, a vote, and a way to help each of their own countries make good decisions that lead to peace, that lead to freedom, that lead to education, to make sure all children in every country are educated. And I think that's that women can make such an important contribution, which is why that's one of the messages I wanted to bring today, was how important women are to civil society
in this process. Do you believe that policies sometimes of the developed world can impact the empowerment of women in the developing world?
Well, no doubt about it. I mean, I think a lot of the policy, certainly we just saw the policy in Kuwait change when the parliament, with the encouragement of the emir, voted for women's suffrage. We know that policymakers make around the world, that there are consequences for every member of every society where political decisions are made. And that's why it's so important to have the voice of everyone. That's what a democracy really does. But not only that, it's really important for each of us, women and men, to respect each other. To respect our rights to worship however we want to respect life, to respect the lives of people, and all of those, each of those values that I just talked about are human values that every religion teaches, and that is the respect for each other and the respect for life. And I think that's very important. It's important for every country to consider those values, that opportunity to let people worship freely. And there's certainly very, very important values in the United States, where I'm from. And did we get there quickly? No. It took us a long time. We had slavery for almost 100 years after the founding of our country. Women didn't get the right to vote in the United States until early in the last century. All of the issues that I heard young people today talk about at the Youth Roundtable are all issues that American young people are also dealing with. The ways they can make a contribution into their society, the way they can be educated, the way they want education to be, so that they get the best education possible. The girls around the table talked about how they wanted to be educated too, so they could choose a job if they wanted to, or they could choose to stay home with their children and be contributing members of their society that way. One of the young men talked about equal opportunity, about the opportunity to have a job, not because of who you know, but because of who you are. And I think that's interesting. And that's something my country's dealt with civil rights laws, with anti-discrimination laws, over many, many years. They're all problems that each of us in our own countries have to address.
Now, I understand, First Lady, that you have worked with inner city youth in situations of conflict where they've joined gangs and violence. What were the difficulties in trying to create change in that type of environment and pushing towards the concept of the empowerment of women?
Well, the amazing thing is how so many problems are just human problems, and we all have them in every country, no matter what our country is. A lot of the people who I've met who were in gangs before in the United States need jobs. That if they had a job, if they had a legitimate job, a way to really contribute to their own families, to their own livelihood, and to their countries, then they have pride and they have self-confidence. And one of the most important ways we can help young people is to make sure they're educated so that they can get a job, one of the new jobs in the 21st century. And that's one thing I've learned about young people in the United States. And then it was the very same thing that young people today at the youth group talked about. They wanted to be educated so they can earn money, so they can find a good job that's satisfying to them both financially and emotionally, a job that makes them feel like they are actually contributing to the constructive building of their countries.
First Lady, and this is the final question, I think we're running out of time, and that is, how essential is it to create peace within the region to actually achieve the empowerment of women, the development of women, the development of youth, and the development of society? And should the developing world put more funding into the educational process, allocate more funding in the educational process rather than military buildup?
Well, of course, I think that education should be the first priority of every government. That I think it's the responsibility of every government to figure out how they can educate everyone in their society. And that people who are educated are more likely to be able to make wise decisions for themselves, for their families, and for their countries. So I think that's very, very important. I also think that peace is the overriding issue here in the Middle East and around the world. And that peaceful countries can then spend their government money to educate people. They don't have to spend so much for security. They don't have to spend so much for military might, but instead can use their resources, their capital resources, to make sure people are educated and to build their economies so that people can get jobs. But peace is what we all pray for and what we all work for. Today at the Youth Roundtable, there was a girl from Palestine, from the Palestinian territories, and as we look there, and all of us long for a day where we can have peace there between Israel and Palestine and have a safe and secure Israel side by side with a free Palestinian state. And I think that will go a long way toward being an example for the rest of the Middle East.
Will that be the message that you'll be taking with you to Israel?
Absolutely. Certainly will.
Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.